Bitcoiners. I am delighted to be here in Nashville, a city known for music, a city known for freedom, and I'm honored to follow Senator Haggerty and address you today. Today, I've decided to use slides. And for those of you who've seen my presentation, some are with slides, some are without slides. I got a lot of good comments on the ones with slides, and so I figured the best way to make this presentation better was more slides. So number go up, and with no more delay, I want to talk about the Bitcoin revolution. I also want to talk about rebuilding a global economy with digital capital. The world, as we know it, is based on 20th century ideas, 20th century technology. Stocks trade 34 unless there's a bank holiday. You can't do things on the weekend. Everything is slow. Everything is expensive. If we want to prosper in the 21st century, we need new ideas, and they need to be based on new technology. This chart you've seen before, popped it up. It's $900 trillion of global wealth. It's that $900 trillion, it's spread across physical assets and financial assets that are 20th century ideas, 20th century technology. The upper left corner is a little orange asset code, what we call Bitcoin. It's $1 trillion. It seems like a lot of you start at zero, but when you put it against the greater scheme of things in the world, it's 0.1%. Here's another way to see that same chart. It's not 900 trillion of assets. It's a bunch of assets held for utility value and a bunch of assets held as a store value, long-term capital. When I buy a house, I want to live in it, but when I buy a bunch of bonds, I just put my money there because I don't know what else to do with the money. And when you start to see the world as a big chunk of long-term capital, $400 trillion more capital, and you start to think about the way we store that capital, you see the engine for the revolution. The global economy struggles because we're relying upon imperfect assets and imperfect systems to store that capital. It's crippling our capital preservation. So how do we engineer a better system? Well, this is Tesla, and Tesla had a quote. He said, "Universe, think in terms of energy frequency and vibration." Like that. I'm going to talk about the physics of money now. What is money? Energy is money, or capital, or wealth. You could use interchangeably for this. For instance, about duration or lifespan. How long will it take? History. We vibrate money every time we trade with each other, or we transfer from one locale to another, or we transform a property into another type of asset. And so here is an important equation. This is useful life is equal to the value of it divided by the cost to maintain that asset. If you're looking for useful life of your money in asset, then the way to figure it out is ask, how much does it cost every year to maintain that asset in pristine condition? What do I have to spend in order to avoid depreciation or decay? It turns out that useful life very closely we know in the community is very if you're in years. Individuals and most corporations use financial assets to preserve capital. And this is the source of challenge for us. Let's talk about financial assets. I keep my money for a long period of time. Start with $1 billion, put it in the peso, and the money is decaying in 2 years. 90% inflation strip you of your economic energy or capital. This is not a good long duration asset. The Turkish lira, you can last 3 years. US dollar, under traditional monetary inflation of the past century, might last 14 years. It's not like you have it for 14 years. The life has been sucked out of you linearly over the 14 years. In a hedge fund, what's the annual cost? It's 2% managed and 20% upside. About 4% a year if you're in assets. It means 25-year asset. Treasuries, you can get a yield, but the 3.5% after-tax yield goes against the 7% monetary inflation. Maybe your money lasts 30 years. Capital fund, where you pay a 1% fee, 100 years. That's what you're going to get. If you manage a diversified portfolio at 10 basis points, the counterparty risk is going to drive you a 1% cost. So those are your financial assets. We're running a 20th century set of ideas, and on average, your financial assets are going to last you 30 years. We all know inflation dilutes the value of financial assets. But inflation is just the tip of the iceberg. You're also going to get diluted by impulse and torts, transfers, taxes. We also have taxes, income tax, capital gains tax. Every time you vibrate with money, you get taxed on the money. And then if the taxes don't take you and torts don't do you, you've got weather and competition and obsolescence, politics, catastrophe. Those are the things that dilute the value of your capital over time. And if you want to maintain economic energy, you have to fight against that friction. That's a frustrating endeavor, and it's a no-win endeavor, so they give up on financial assets. and they start turning to physical assets to preserve capital. Well, here's the physical asset, a Ferrari. Not a good way to keep it forever, though, because after 5 years, you spend so much on the insurance and the upkeep and depreciation is worth. The odds aren't much better. If you spend 10% of your money operating, you also get hit with depreciation. Don't store your money in yachts. Home in Money Beach, if you got $10 million house, you got $10 million to maintain it for 17 years, and you've got money left. Silver, 22 years. A warehouse, 40 years, maybe 50 years. A bar of gold, 62 years. A painting, 72 years. Land, the average property tax in the United States is 1.1%. That means your money will last 91 years unless the government reassesses the value of your property. Then it's going to last less than 91 years. The oldest family ranch in the United States, King Ranch, they made it 173 years. Every other family in the country failed. And here's the longest held property, the Crown Estate in the United Kingdom. You could say the royal family held it since 1066. But on the other hand, it passed from the Plantagenets to the Stuarts, through the Lancasters and the Yorks, and eventually found its way to the Hanover family. And so maybe some different families split that. None of them got it with them. So physical assets you might think might last a year, probably about 50 to 75 years is the best you're going to do. Entropy is diluting the value of your physical assets. It's sucking the capital, the energy out of them. There's a reason it's called Earth and Heaven. Because politicians are very creative. They got a city tax, a state tax, a federal tax, a transfer tax, a usage tax on the property. And if that doesn't get you, there's rent control, price control, or a shock. You got competition you might get screened against. There's a recession, the currency can collapse, your tenants won't pay you. Someone will fall on the front sidewalk and sue you. There's weather, war, crime, catastrophe. And if energy prices go through the roof, it's going to be hard for you to make a go of it. Physical capital is not a solution. Something I learned at MIT, the 3 laws of thermodynamics. You can win. You can't break even. But you can't get out of the game. So you can stop right here and get depressed, but again, you don't want to lose. So you start thinking, how do we find a way out of the game? Then you could break even. Then you could win. So tell us a way. He gave away. And he went away. And that's Bitcoin. Bitcoin is digital capital. That's what he created. Bitcoin is immortal, immutable, and immaterial capital. And I use that in this sense. It's got an infinite lifespan. It's not attacked by the forces of weather, entropy, and inflation. It's immaterial in the sense that it's not in the physical world. It's not suffering from all of the parade of horribles, the scourge of financial and physical assets. And the solution to our economic dilemma. The transformation of our capital from financial and digital assets. It solves the problem that we're all facing. How long-lived is Bitcoin? Well, take Bitcoin and put it at scale with a custodian, an institutional custodian. You pay 10 basis points. By the first law of money, that means you'll last 1,000 years. The custodian might last 1,000 years. It doesn't matter because you can move Bitcoin every year or every decade, and you can stay one step ahead of the custodians failing. You can't teleport a building. You can't teleport the King Ranch. And so Bitcoin is that thing that you move. Say you custody your Bitcoin. You can self-custody your Bitcoin for about 1 basis point or something like good hardware wallets and devices in a year to keep track of it. You got a 10,000-year asset. And what happens if you give it to the AI? Well, an AI or a computer program can maintain those private keys for the cost of electricity. You've got 100-year asset. The AIs are going to want the Bitcoin. If they have a choice between owning Bitcoin and owning the ranch in Texas or owning a bar of gold or owning the Argentine peso, it's pretty obvious they're going to want, and you see here why they want it. Digital assets are a class all their own. When you compare them to all the other assets that you can use for capital preservation, you see off the scale, everything else is living in the domain of 30, 40 years, and you're in the domain of 1,000 to 100,000 years. It's a breakthrough in capital preservation, but it makes a revolution in economics. If you would be rich, trade wisely. And here's a very simple principle. Trade theory for permanent. Trade your cream for the peso, the dollar for the land, and the land for Bitcoin. Trade the currency for capital. Trade something fragile for something billion. Trade something local for something global. Trade something physical for something digital. Trade the commodity for the scarcity. You can't go wrong moving in that direction. So let's talk about some great trades in history, some trillion-dollar trades. The Dutch understood naval power. They understood thousands of them. They best hoard in the New World for a couple of $100 in plastic and textile trinkets. And that's worth $2.5 trillion today. Okay? It was 398 years straight. It's a 10.5 billion X return. And if you think about it, like, why would I actually give up the best port in America for a bunch of textiles and plastic and glass? But the people that sold the thing to them didn't understand naval power. They don't appreciate the reason you're going to want the property. You won't value the property. Napoleon wanted to gallivant across the old, and Jefferson wanted to expand in the New World. So France sells Louisiana to the U.S. for $50 million in 1803. The $15 million probably lasted a few months for the French army. It's gone. Jefferson got that. He got 27% of the United States. It's an 800,000x return. We're talking more. Jefferson had it. As did this man. Seward paid $7 million for Alaska to out the country's decimated Civil War. John D. Rockefeller was trying to start a company. Today, $1 trillion of oil on Alaska. It's a massive return for a piece of paper. How much is digital capital worth? $40 trillion multiplied by 3%, that's your entropy cost, your inflation cost. It costs the world $13.5 billion a year to take all of this rate of horribles when they're trying to preserve their wealth. If you put a 20 P to E on it, like you value a company or a long duration bond, it's worth $270 trillion. So digital capital is worth 10, 20, 15 trillion a year. It's hundreds of trillions of dollars. Reality check. BS. Well, digital capital has returned 55% for the past 4 years. Financial capital, the best in the world, is a bond. It's minus 5%. Imagine companies crunch on a minus 5% instead of a plus 55%. It's obviously working. Now let's come back to my chart here. Well, look at it like this, and we see a little Bitcoin, square in the left corner. But what's happening? Here's my macro Bitcoin forecast. It's 21 years. Goes out to the year 2045. What do I think will happen? Well, I've got a bear case and a bull case. But I think I'll 55% ARR. Goes to 50%, 45, 40, 35, 30, 15, 50, and 20. It'll gradually decelerate until it's growing about twice as fast as the SGX. And at that rate, Bitcoin's 13